Good evening. Jared Bouchard, 632 Pine Lakes Trail. I'm going to start out by saying I oppose the Montante solar project. And I would like to quote what our recently elected town supervisor had to say in the February 25th issue of the Webster Herald. You stated, "I am a passionate advocate for green and open space, and am always looking for ways to enhance the protection of these spaces as often as possible." Well, that is exactly why I'm here tonight. The Xerox land is green space. The 20-acre site proposed for solar installation is not a paved parking lot, not a rooftop, and not an already cleared industrial parcel. It is a fragile, capped, toxic landfill. Land that is too toxic for human use, yet deer, fox, coyote, and countless other species have made it their permanent home on otherwise unusable property. It is wooded green space that contains mature trees and established vegetation, actively capturing and restoring carbon every single day, a natural climate solution. Cutting down 17.5 acres of trees, which I'm quoting from previous Montante statistics, that have grown for decades to install solar panels on capped toxic landfills is not environmental progress. It is counterproductive. This is not an argument against solar energy. Renewable energy is important. The question is whether this is the right location and whether Webster has a coherent policy framework guiding these decisions. The honest answer is no, you do not. Shouldn't the intended result be to make conditions better for people living near toxic landfills so they can stay safe and healthy? What is Webster's townwide policy that advocates for climate resilience? The town of Webster is not registered as a climate-smart community, nor do they participate in the Clean Energy Communities Program, both longstanding New York State initiatives. What type of policy has the town adopted that sets the standard for climate action plan? Where are the mapped preferred solar development areas, the greenhouse gas inventory, the emissions reduction targets? The town board is being asked to approve a large-scale solar installation without comprehensive climate or sitting strategy in place. This is backwoods. A special use permit requires compatibility with surrounding land uses and consistency with community planning objectives. Without clearly identified renewable criteria, without mapped priority areas, and without adopted climate goals, it is difficult to say that this proposal reflects the strategic community objective. Removing a functioning wooded carbon sink in a town that has not even adopted a formal climate framework raises serious questions about priorities and processes. I respectfully urge the board to pause, allow comprehensive plan processes to establish clear sitting policy. Evaluating one project at a time without policy direction is setting a premature precedent. Webster deserves a climate strategy before it approves projects in the name of climate process. A no vote confirms that you are a community that plans first and builds second. Please vote no.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, up next, Elaine Johnson.
Hi, Elaine Johnson, 626 Pine Lakes Trail. Over the last 2 quarters, residents have shared data, facts, and evidence about safety concerns about the solar project. Every brownfield is different with unique conditions. The Xerox brownfield requires that what is buried in the ground remain undisturbed, making this a poor choice location for this project. The town has a responsibility in picking the right location. This is key. Solar and environmental protection are not mutually exclusive. There is not enough evidence provided on this project to show that the waste and landfill will not be disturbed over the 30 years of this project. During the election campaign in November, when you knocked on our doors and you introduced yourselves and your team, you shared with us that you were not in favor of this project and that didn't fit with the town or with the town vision. You asked for our vote and our support. We voted for you and your team on the basis that you were not in favor of this project. So we're asking you today to stick by your campaign promises and vote no for a special use permit. Thank you so much.
Next, Brian Solo. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Ocello. I'm at 1479 Grand Meadows Way. New to the game, in a sense. We came in October and heard about the project, so did a little bit of research. But again, there's been statistics put out tonight, and those were great statistics. And I have a couple other little things to share about that. But again, I want to appeal to conscience tonight, because the thing that I see here that's screaming loud and clear is that there's 400 plus people being ignored in this decision if it goes forward. There's been some painting of the broad stroke of the brush with painting of things like I've heard the gentleman here tonight talk about sound, that there's not going to be any loud noises. Well, I don't think anybody was disputing that there would be loud noises. I don't think anybody would, vote for something like that, for loud noises. But that's not the noise that I particularly was concerned about and did some research on. There's something that it's the electrical devices generally produce more noise at half load rather than at full load. And they're low frequency noises. And they're an annoyance. It's not, again, something that's like a plane going by or something super loud, and everything fits within the 40 decibels that was mentioned tonight. And, but it's the 120 hertz where the core, the coil, and the fan noise of these transformers or inverters, which there's 18 of them if I'm still correct on that. But it's the magnetic hum, it's the loaded related buzz, and it's the fans and the cooling. The last time I was here, I played a little 17-second video. I'll spare you that again, but it's an annoying sound. There's so many other things that we can build foundations on. And speaking of foundations, it seems like the foundations came to a little bit of a crack tonight with some of the things talked about. And I know, and I'm going to give the wonderful people here the benefit of the doubt that they weren't totally prepared for some of those things where the questions came with cracks. But, I heard one quick explanation that they would even build another foundation possibly under it. Well, if it's sinking, or if it possibly could sink at that point, I know these are lighter, so we're not going to go through all those details. But if you add more weight, what does that do? And maybe the four corners and cracks. And it sounds like the DEC, which, we checked all the boxes. We said the DEC. We talked about all the different studies that were done. We heard about Xerox being a benevolent industry, went through all the little lines of how Xerox is concerned. But Xerox is ignoring the will of the people here, which is over 400. And we have serious concerns. So again, I appeal to the conscience. Would you put this in your backyard? And that's the question. Because this isn't necessarily, again, about solar. I have a video again tonight that was from the CEO of Honeywell that I could share, but I won't, that expresses the fallacy of the return on investment of these projects. This is the CEO of Honeywell. So there's a lot to be said here. And the two questions that I'll leave with is this. Can Xerox or maybe Phillips Lytle and their client, can they guarantee that the noise will not be an issue in writing where we can have some recourse if that becomes an issue? And I think I know the answer to the question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. But would you do that? And then also, we started to go down this path. If, what if Xerox fails or if Xerox moves out? And if there's a bankruptcy, we didn't talk about that word. What if there's some bankruptcy? Does their insurance still kick in? These are a lot of questions that really do need to be answered. But it's about placement, guys. It's about placement. And again, last time, would you put this in your backyard? There's plenty of other places to put it in. Plenty of other places to put it in. I know there's a lot of money on the line. There's commissions on the line. There's resumes on the line. But 20 years down the road, maybe 15 down the road, maybe it only takes 10 years. If something happens beyond the control that was not anticipated, how are you going to feel if we let this thing just go based on things that are unknown? And the answer was, this is my last point, that they did not ever put one of these, and they can prove me wrong on that, over asphalt. They put them in other locations, but they've never put it over asphalt and in this situation. That has to raise some big question marks. Are we going to be the guinea pigs and the testing ground for that? I hope not.
Thank you.
Up next is our good friend Chris Naka.
Chris Naka, 1065 Shoecraft Road. It's really great to see this many people here. There's usually not a lot of people here, and when the topic of the solar garden is up for discussion, you all show up, and we could go back and forth on the science one way or the science the other way. And I think this many people showing up with a resounding no is really the only thing that needs to be said. We're not going to them asking for anything. They're coming to us asking for something, and we're very clearly saying no. And it's kind of irrelevant which way and whose favor the science lands on. If people that pay a lot of money are coming home to their houses and are emotionally burdened by things in their backyard, that's the only side effect that needs to happen for this no to hold weight. And I hope, again, as many other community members have said, I hope that these types of things are not just done deals. They're not already written before, they're almost predetermined. And that when this many people decide to take time out of their day to come in and be a community and get together and work towards a common goal, that those efforts are not spat upon, and that they're valued, and that they're empowered to keep coming and keep having an opinion and wanting to show up every 2 weeks or every week, whenever that they're held, so that this community can be cohesive. There's a lot of trauma and tragedy happening in the world right now, and really all we can do is look towards our community members and the people that are closest to us and form bonds with those people and get close with those people and work together to complete a goal with those people. And it's probably the healthiest way to push all those outside noises away from us. And I hope that this gets resolved in a way that leaves the residents happy and not just a few more tax dollars in the coffers or another company with another sale. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.